Good morning. Most bands these days, the musicians are running in-ear monitors rather than monitor wedges. And most musicians want to be able to do their own monitor mix on their smartphone. And actually, this is a great deal for you because that's like 5 things you don't have to worry about. So today I'm going to show you the easiest way to set up your system so that the musicians in the band can do their own monitor mix. Let's get started.
Now I'm assuming that you know the IP address of your UI unit and the IP address of your external router, and that you know how to connect your in-ear system to the aux outputs of the mixer. Now if you don't know the IP address of your UI unit, it's very easy to find it. You just go to Settings and Network. And there is your IP address of your unit. Also, I'm assuming that you have the hotspot and the Wi-Fi disabled, otherwise you could have problems. Now, much of the configuration you're going to have to do will be with your external router. And of course, they're all different. And you access them usually through a web page. And what you're looking at here is the web page for my router. And let's look at the settings that we need to deal with. I'm going to go first off to the LAN settings, the local area network. And let's see what we have. This would be the static IP address of the router itself. Okay, you're going to need to know that. In my case, it's using the 192.168 format. I think later units went to 10.0.0. It doesn't matter. There's 2 numbers that you have here. You have a subnet mask and you have an internet protocol address. Now the subnet mask really doesn't matter unless you're going to have more than 255 devices connected to your network, which you're not going to. So for every device on your network, if you have to fill in the subnet mask, it's going to be 255.255.255.0. Everything will be that same value. You could think of it, an analogy, you can think of it as your zip code. Everything on the network has to be within the same zip code. Okay, now this number has a bit more information. The first 3 numbers, in my case, the 192.168.2, those are going to be the same for every device on my network. Every phone, every tablet, the UI, and so forth. You could think of that as your street name. And everything in the network has to live on the same street. This number, however, will vary. This number will vary. I have address 254 for this. Okay. For example, my UI unit is address 192.168.2-1. It's a static address. So this is the address of the router. The address of my unit, the only difference is it ends in a 1. Everything else is the same. Then you're going to have something that's usually called a DHCP server. Now you're going to want to have your DHCP server turned on if you're going to have random people connecting to your network with their phones, if you're using different bands and so forth. You're not going to want to use all static IP addresses. What the DHCP server does is it sends out an address to every device on the network automatically. Now you'll notice that the first address it would send out is 192.168.2.20 in my case. And the last address would be 192.168.2-200. So what, that's 180 devices that could connect. It'll send out those addresses automatically. Please note that your IP address for your router cannot be within this range, nor for the UI unit. You don't want the UI unit being within this range. That's why I have my UI unit as 1, and this is 254. So that's the DHCP server that we want to have on. Let's move on to the next thing. Okay, we're going to go back to, in my case, what's called the dashboard. And we're going to look at the Wi-Fi information, in particular, the network name. My router puts out 2 Wi-Fi bands, the 2.4 gigahertz and the 5 gigahertz. They each have their own name. So users could connect to either one of them. I think the 2.4 has better range, but the 5 gigahertz, of course, is faster. But things you definitely want to look at, you want to make sure that your broadcast SSID is turned on. That's got to be turned on if people are going to easily find your mixer. Now, you're also going to want to have some security on your Wi-Fi network. Let's go to the security tab. I'm using WP, whatever that might be. Essentially, you're going to want to put a password on your network. Since I'm broadcasting 2 networks, I've entered a password for each of them. You're going to want to have a password. That way, when users go to connect to your Wi-Fi network, they'll have to know the password. Now, if you're doing lots of different bands, eventually there's going to be a whole bunch of bands that know the passwords to your Wi-Fi network. So you might want to change that often. If you're doing this for your own band, it's not that big of an issue, but you want to have a password for your Wi-Fi network. There are other things you could set at, but that's the minimum, and that's the stuff that has to be set up for this to work. So let's move on now and connect some phones. Okay, before you start letting people connect with their phones and telling them how to connect, there's something you want to do in the mixer. You want to go to your settings. You want to go to access. And what we're going to do with access, we're going to log in. You're going to set a password. Now, this is not the password you use to get into your system. It's not even the Wi-Fi password. It can be anything. You can change it every night. I'm going to call it Fred. So there's my password. And then we're going to determine what we want them to have access to. Now, obviously, it would be the aux levels. We don't want them to have access to any of this other stuff. Then don't log out. Don't disable. Leave that set as it is. And then you can go back to your mixer. At this point, you're ready to show people how to connect with their phone. So let's move over to the phones now. Okay, now let's go to a phone of a client that's going to want to connect. Say this is the guitar player. The first thing you're going to have to do is go to settings and connect your Wi-Fi. Now, right now I'm connected to my home Wi-Fi. But if I go to Wi-Fi down here in the other network section, I see I have 2 for my router. Yours may or may not have 2. I have a 2.4 and a 5. The 2.4 has better range. The 5 is faster, but 2.4 is plenty fast enough. So let's connect to the 2.4. So I'm going to connect to that. You're going to have to give them the password that you've set up for this. Okay, so there we are. I'm going to join that network, that Wi-Fi network. It's connecting. And in this case, it's taking me to my router. I'm just going to cancel out of that. You're going to want to use this without the internet. You have no choice in the way this is set up. You're going to have to tell people they're not, while they're connected to your network, they're not going to have access to the internet. So there we are. We're connected to the UI unit now. Next, I'm going to go to my browser, which in this case is Safari since it's an iPhone. And you will notice that it's not going to be able to connect to Google on the internet. You're going to want to enter the IP address of your UI unit, which in my case is 192.168.2.1. All right, let's go there, and this will bring you up to the screen where you would select between a tablet or a phone. In this case, we're using a phone. And it will connect, and you notice it'll come up to this screen, which is the More Me screen. If you want to see the whole mix, you just turn the phone sideways, and there's the whole mix. Now, you will notice that it's locked. Everything is locked. There's a couple things you have to do for people to use this successfully. And we're going to go to the top right, the 3 little bars on the top right. If I hit those 3 little bars, the first thing each person is going to have to do is go to settings. Okay. Once they go to settings, they're going to want to go to access. And under access, they're going to have to select their aux, whichever aux they're connected to. You're going to have to tell them. You're going to have to tell the guitar player you are connected to, say, for example, aux 2. And hopefully they'll select just aux 2. Unfortunately, they can select whichever one they want or all of them. But for most people, they'll cooperate. They'll select the one you tell them, aux 2. So now we have aux 2 selected. We'll go back to the little mixer symbol in the upper right-hand corner. Now you'll notice if they try to mix on the main screen, it's locked. Again, you have to go back to the 3 little bars in the upper right, and this time we're going to select aux sends. Okay, right now it's set for aux 1, and you'll notice for the guitar player, aux 1 is locked because we told him he was on aux 2. If he selects aux 2, there he is, he can then do his own mix, which is the whole idea behind this. So there's all the loops and bells and whistles you had to jump through so that the guitar player could mix his own in-ears or monitor. You would set up the bass player maybe on aux 1, the drummer on aux 3, the singer on aux 4, whatever. You'd go through that with each of them. That's how it works. It's confusing, but it does work. It does work. So if you have questions, ask. I'll try to answer them. And I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. Good luck. See you later.